Hi everyone, my name is Melissa Quackenbush and I am a doctoral student in the Educational Psychology and Program Evaluation program at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. Today I have the privilege of speaking with Dr. Timothy Cleary from Rutgers University as part of the Studying and Self-Regulated Learning SIG's Advice from Productive Scholars video series. Dr. Cleary, thank you very much for speaking with me this afternoon. And I know that I've had the privilege of getting to know you at the last AERA conference, but for our viewers today, my first question to you is just tell us a little bit about your history with the SSRL SIG.
Sure. Well, thanks for wanting to interview me. This is, I think, a great opportunity to talk about SRL. So, you know, I've enjoyed, I think, a very active, long history with the SIG. I guess it's been 13 or 14 years. I served on the SIG board as the secretary, program chair, junior chair, senior chair, very active in those roles. And one of the things I'm proud of is I was very instrumental in forming the Barry J. Zimmerman Award that gets awarded annually to a renowned scholar. But I think the thing that I've been, most associated with the SIG is the mentoring program. And so I've been chairing that for several years. And I really enjoyed that program of providing that service, really because I got a chance to interact with many scholars on a more personal level, getting to know them, and to work, of course, with graduate students and help to kind of pay it forward a little bit because I've been blessed with the guidance and mentoring that I have received in my career.
That's incredible. So speaking of your career, and I have to just piggyback on that because I had the privilege of being a mentee in that graduate student mentoring program. And I'm very grateful for the time and wisdom that you gave me so generously. So for those unfamiliar with your work, how do you describe your research interests?
I guess broadly speaking, it's very SRL centric. It's SRL heavy, thick. But I think what I love the most, and that really exemplifies my work, is application. You know, that is really translating SRL theory, research to practice, how to help educators, clinicians, parents actually, and students actually think about it and use those principles in real time. And so, you know, when I think about application, I've done it, I guess, in different ways. And if you think about, I'm a school psychologist, so in thinking of the professional roles of a school psychologist, I've done a lot of research with SRL assessment activities, SRL interventions, doing a lot more in professional development workshops and implementation of interventions or consultation. So been pretty diverse in the roles, if you think about it like that, how it's been applied. And it's also been pretty diverse in my application across domains or activities or tasks. Right. So when you consider sports, I've looked at, you know, dart throwing or free throw shooting, for example, K-12 academic context, focused a lot on the math and science content areas, specifically around test preparation or problem solving, and even most recently, science investigations. I've also dabbled into medical education, working with medical education students or medical professionals, understanding SRL in relationship to clinical tasks like venipuncture or clinical reasoning.
Which is just incredible. So then it leads the question, how did you get into this line of research?
This is a good question. This has been asked before by some folks in different contexts. And I think there's really three main things. If one is when it's more of a personal level, like growing up as a child and a student, middle school, high school, I always seem to be fascinated with why people are motivated or not. And I was very motivated, and I would use these motivational tricks or whatnot to get myself motivated when I was bored, tired, or didn't want to do something. I'd always be able to push myself, and I always wondered why other people couldn't motivate themselves or regulate themselves effectively to be able to succeed, even though they were intelligent and smart.
Right.
So I always had those issues that were kind of at the forefront of my thinking. And then obviously is when I met Barry in grad school. The first class I took with him was in, I guess it was 96, my first year in the program. And it was a class on motivation and self-regulation. And 3 weeks in, I'm like, this is the language, everything that I've been thinking about. This is it. So at the time, he was not my advisor. Somebody else was. I was doing post-traumatic stress disorder research, which was fine and it was okay. But I was able to persuade Barry to take me on as a student, even though he was full. And he was gracious and maybe he saw something in me that he liked and he accepted, and that changed everything for me. And I think kind of what goes along with all of this is, I'm a school psychologist, like I said. So as a school psychologist, in this profession, it really epitomizes the notion of being in service to others. And in this profession, our core mandate is to advocate for children and families. And so, I think the reason I love SRL as a concept so much is because of its applicability to schools. And it's really like the mechanism through which we empower people to take control over their life. And so I view that as kind of maybe a long-winded answer to your question.
But that is spot on. And I don't know about the viewers for this segment, but that resonates with me. And I think you said it beautifully. Aside from that, what do you enjoy most about the work that you are involved in? You kind of alluded to your enjoyment of being part of the graduate student mentoring program, and it's obvious that relationships are important to you. But academic life is a grind, and it's not always relationship centric. So, what do you enjoy most about this work, and how do you find yourself maybe finding those things that fill your soul amongst the drain?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is a grind in a sense, but it's also when I think anything can be viewed as being a grind when you devote a lot of your time and effort to it. But it's enjoyable. So it's an enjoyable grind. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But I think the thing I don't know. I mean, I'll say broad in answering this question is really the data analysis. It's putting all the pieces of a puzzle together. And so it could be a true experiment. It could be an in-depth case study. But what I find most invigorating is explaining phenomena and seeing how different or aspects fit together to tell a story. And that time and time again, as I get into different aspects of academic life, whether it's administration or whatever, the one thing I go to that I probably love the most is the analysis and understanding how different parts fit together. And so I get to play around with that a lot as an academic, which is great.
Yeah.
I think the other aspect that it really undercuts a lot of my work, if not all of it, is this notion of empowerment. That is really helping people believe and experience that they have control and agency over their life. And so, I mostly work with children and adolescents in that regard, but it's really the same level of satisfaction when working with adults. Teachers, for example, I do a lot of professional development workshops, and nothing's more exciting and satisfying than seeing teachers develop a sense of efficacy that they could infuse these principles into their classroom relatively easily, and that they have the competencies and capabilities to do so. Yeah. So for me, that's the payoff in this work. Is it feeds my love of analysis and inductive and deductive reason. I really like that, and really having a strong impact on the lives of people. And so hopefully I get to continue to do that.
That's incredible. I think you will, for sure. Then are there any particular challenges to the work? And if so, how do you overcome them?
Well, I think most researchers would probably talk about very similar challenges that they experience in this line of work. But specifically for me, I think the most challenging aspect is probably the applied nature of the work.
Mm.
Applied work tends to be very time consuming, challenging, unpredictable. Doing tightly controlled experiments in a school context is not easy. There's a lot of things that can derail a study, even if it's not a true experiment. There's a lot of things that could go awry, and it's a system with all the different parts. So, the one thing I learned to deal with that as a challenge is to really the importance of really collaborating effectively with others.
Mm.
And to see what I've tried to do. And sometimes in my early career, people would say, well, you don't need to do that, you're a researcher. But I always felt the importance of trying to meld my ideas and projects and to see it fit with the overall initiatives and needs within a given school. If there wasn't a fit, I wouldn't want to do research there.
Right.
So I view it as this reciprocal relationship that, you need to develop trust with schools. You have to help them understand that what you are doing can benefit them in some way. So it's really, I kind of advocate a true researcher, practitioner partnership, if you will.
Yeah.
So if in terms of advice, in terms of this applied nature of work, it's sometimes you don't get to publish as quickly as you would if you're doing other types of studies, because it's more involved. And again, sometimes you can't publish on something because something happens that really prevents that from a methodological point of view.
Right.
But yes, I view that as the greatest challenge in my work.
Yeah. But then also that silver lining where when those pieces of the puzzle do come together, how incredible. I mean, you're just watching magic. So I appreciate that. And speaking of magic, let's talk about your future projects and your future endeavors. What lays on the horizon for you?
Yeah, I envision myself getting a little bit more into administration. There's some internal push towards that. It's always kind of been there, and I've always been progressing towards that. But I'd never go away from research and writing and doing the work I'm doing now. So I'll talk about that, like the two areas of research that I'll continue.
Good.
And I'm very grant active. So I recently got, I was a co-PI on an NSF grant, a 5-year grant, $3.5 million. And I'm working with a great team of scholars. The project title it's called SPIN, S-P-I-N, which is an acronym that stands for Science Practice Innovation Notebook, fostering computational thinking with self-regulated learning. And like I said, it's a 5-year grant led by Dr. Erin Peters-Burden from George Mason. I'm one of the co-PIs, as is Anastasia Kitsantis and Peter Rich. And Phil Winnie, we're very grateful to have him as part of the team. He's playing a central role in the development of this technology we're using to assist teachers in infusing SRL and computational thinking in the context of data practices during science investigations. So he's using his end study program as a tool to help us execute on the grant. So we're going to have 5 years of fun with that one, working with teachers developing high school curriculum around computational thinking and the various competencies for the next generation science standards.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of PD work with the teachers this summer, which was really great. A lot of intensive workshops around computational thinking and self-regulation. And so teachers were very excited and just seeing the value immediately of these areas and how we could infuse it in the classroom. So I spent a lot of time on that for sure. But, I think another area where I've been beginning to write a lot about is implementation related issues. I've done a lot of different research designs in my work. I've used a lot of different research designs. But I'm getting more and more interested in professional development, training with teachers specifically. And broadly, more broadly, implementation of SRL interventions in schools. And so there's a concept that I've been increasingly writing about, is social validity, and that is the perceptions of various stakeholders within a context regarding the significance of the goal of an intervention, or the appropriateness of the procedures, or the importance of the effects. So it's really kind of getting a handle on how do people who receive, who provide, or who are otherwise affected by an intervention, how do they perceive it? And that's really important in terms of sustainability and the actual adoption of an intervention in a school context. So I'm increasingly finding myself interested in really exploring those issues in greater depth. And actually, in a recent book chapter that I co-authored with Dr. Ann Gregory, we were looking to expand this social validity concept to include sociocultural issues such as power and privilege and whatnot, as a way to help understand how to maximize intervention, implementation, and adoption in schools.
That's incredible. I cannot wait to see more from this, and I'm sure our viewers do as well. Last question for this interview, because I know your time is precious. What advice do you have to give up-and-coming researchers, graduate students who are just starting out in this field?
Well, it's there's a lot of advice. I mean, but I think like two things, maybe three, come to mind. First is, and this is something I learned in one of my first meetings with Barry Zimmerman, and he said, Tim, whatever you do, whether it's a practitioner, that's what I was studying to be, a school psychologist, or a researcher, you have to start with a good model, a good framework to guide your thinking, to help you develop expectations and hypotheses. And so that just resonated with me, that it was a kind of an off-the-hand comment, but it's something that felt so important. And it's really guided everything I've done, both as a practitioner, which I was for 4 or 5 years, and as an academic. And so I train my students, who are, most of them are going to be practitioners in schools, about the importance of theory and models, and how that grounds our analysis of a situation. So I encourage people to, whatever they do, start with a good model. That's the first thing.
Yeah. That's excellent.
I also, I'm sorry, did you have a question, a follow-up for that one? Or?
No, it's excellent advice. I mean, if you're going to start laying seeds, whatever they are, make sure that the work that you're about to endeavor upon is going to be built on something that is sound.
Sure, exactly. Or at least testable.
Yeah, or at least testable. Yeah.
I also think it's important to view graduate school as an opportunity. And what I mean by that is that graduate school is really one of the last times you'll have in your life when you are surrounded by really, really smart people who share the goal of cultivating and nurturing your skills and knowledge to become the best that you can be. And so once you get in practice in the field, there's less and less direct guidance. You might collaborate with people, of course. You might partner with people, and you might learn from others. Great. What I'm talking about grad school is practice. It's training for you to become a professional. So take extra classes if you can. Take extra stats classes or methodology classes if you can. Those are the bedrock of a profession or a career in research. Be on multiple research teams if you can. Actually do all the readings for all your classes. My hand was up. I was guilty sometimes as a grad student. You might peruse a couple, or maybe you just didn't quite get to one. But again, by viewing grad school more as just a lot of practice opportunity and pure training before you're thrown out to the wolves, just immerse yourself into learning.
Yeah.
And you'll be better for it. I think I had a third point. My third point is, and this is, I don't think this one gets talked about enough, but yet I see it all the time amongst my doctoral students. And that is the importance of self-care. You know, I think sometimes doctoral students get caught up in the rat race that is publications and being productive, and you know, there's so much to learn and to do, but you really need to take care of yourself. You have to take time for yourself outside of school. There should be a life outside of grad school. I don't know how much of it, but there should be something that, you know, grad school could be very anxiety provoking, cause a lot of emotional stress. And so one of my colleagues, Dr. Karen Habush, who recently passed away, her phrase was self-care, and our students loved her for that. And so it's just to remind grad students who are focused on their career and are plowing ahead and working 16-hour days, whatever they're doing, you have to take care of yourself, because if you don't, nobody will.
Absolutely. And this journey is a marathon, and you have to pace yourself. And yeah, that's excellent, excellent advice. Anything else, any questions that I didn't ask that, you know, any missed opportunities on my part?
You know, I don't think so in terms of questions. You know, I've spoken to a lot of people about my gratitude to the SIG in general, and the this field that has so many gracious and you know, intelligent scholars. I'm just grateful to be a part of that, and for the SIG for organizing such wonderful opportunities for us to network and collaborate and hear from each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, again, perfect, well said. And I just have to thank you again for your time, your transparency, and your talents that contribute to this field, not just with teaching and school psychologists, but also research, and particularly with self-regulated learning. This has been a privilege for me today, and I know it's going to be for the other viewers as well. So Dr. Cleary, thank you very much.
Thank you, and stay well.
Thank you.